if your stabilizers are actually helping you or hindering you. The results might surprise you. It's a hot and windy day in South Africa, and what better time to talk about stabilizers. There were actually a few requests in the previous video where I was requested to talk about stabilizers a bit, and it's a bit of a tricky situation because it can get a bit confusing. Most advice you will find is that it's a personal thing and you have to play with it, but I'm going to try and break it down and put it into steps to see if you're on the right track, because stabilizers, believe it or not, might be actually hurting your shooting rather than helping you, and this might all be because of just the wrong setup, either too heavy or just on the wrong place or whatever it is. So the best thing is to use a system, go through it and see if you're actually doing better with your stabilizers or actually doing worse, and we're going to test it now, so stay tuned. And before we go over to doing this test, remember that the number one purpose of this test is to see if your stabilizers are actually helping you or hindering you. The results might surprise you. You might shoot better without your stabilizers, and if that's the case, we're going to build it up back slowly and we're going to see if we can get you into the right direction. But you will have the knowledge, and you might see things differently, and you'll have the knowledge to set up your stabilizers over time to get the optimum performance. Stabilizers are there to stabilize your bow, right, as the name says. And a lot of people see it as you have to get your bow to aim as steady as possible, which is true, but there's also some missing information here. I think your main goal should be to get your bow to spend as much time inside the scoring area as possible. Now, some of you might say, well, that's the same thing, your bow aims better. Well, it's perceived, it's not to say that it is, because I'll take an example. Say an average archer takes his bow and he stands on 20 yards aiming at a paper plate. That archer should spend 100%, if it's not windy, if it's not terribly windy, on 20 yards, his pin should never leave that paper plate ring. Now, taking back to 100 yards, he's definitely not going to spend 100% in time inside that paper plate as he aims, right? I think we all agree on that. He might spend a lot of time in there, but let's say for an argument's sake, he spends 50% inside that paper plate. Theoretically, he should hit it about 50% of the time. It's not 100% test, but you know, you can imagine that he's going to hit that 50% of the time. Now, what does that mean? Well, if you think you should just add weight to your stabilizers, I would not recommend that, because yes, you're going to be steadier, but let's go back to the paper plate on 100 yards, right? So now, say he's aiming at that paper plate, the same archer, and now his bow is moving a lot slower because he's super weight his bow. He's got 30 ounces in front and 30 in the back. And his bow's moving so slow that he's actually aiming on that paper plate for 2 or 3 seconds, and he doesn't get his shot off, and it moves out of that paper plate, and it spends another 3 seconds to get back to the inside that paper plate. Now, he spent half of the time outside the paper plate, and now you're kind of hoping that your shot went off when it was inside the paper plate. Now, let's take a guy with a medium weight setup, and he moves over that paper plate, right? But he can't really tell because it's in and out, and he spends 60% of the time aiming inside the paper plate. He should hit it about 60% of the time, so he's going to have more chance of hitting it, right? Now, the purpose of this test is to actually see that if this is the case for you, and to actually see if it works for you. Now bear in mind, this is for a archer with a controlled shot, and it's not a command shooter, because obviously if you're a command archer and you super weight your bow and you bring it up and you just slam that trigger and you get that shot off within 2 or 3 seconds, and you were inside the scoring area, then obviously it's a different story. But I don't coach that, and I don't teach it, and I don't recommend it even, because it's not for everyone. That's a slippery slope that you're climbing, and a lot of people can do it and a lot of people are brilliant at it. I just don't want to teach it, or I don't think it's the long-term solution to archery. So keep in mind, this test might be better for a archer who shoots a controlled surprise release rather than a command shooter. So just keep that in mind. The number one goal of the setup after the testing is to get your bow to spend as much time as possible inside the scoring area when you're executing a shot. The number one thing, not to aim grade, not to sit as still as possible. Your main goal should be to spend as much time inside the scoring zone as possible. So let's do the testing. I'm excited to see my results and also your results. So the first thing you need to do is remove your stabilizers from your bow and remove the weights off your stabilizers. And then also remove your threaded rod outside the inside of one of your rods so that you can join them together. We're going to do a test quickly, and the purpose of this is to find your neutral setup. So then you screw it together like this, your back bar and your front bar. If you're shooting a V-bar with 2 stabilizers, I'm not sure how to do this test, but this is for a single sidebar. And then you balance it and then see where it balances right there, right? So I've got it on the plus here. You can actually mark it if you want, but I'll remember that. That's on the plus. And just maybe like a little bit backwards. So it's balancing on the plus over here for me. So that's your neutral, that's your starting point. The purpose of this is to find your neutral balance. So if you're adding weights and you're playing, you can always take your stabilizers off and then see how far you're off that mark. And if you like more front weight, it will obviously sit more in front. And if you like more back weight, it will be backwards. But whenever you're adding weight or taking weight off your bow and you like the way it sits, but you don't want to change that feeling, but you want it lighter, you can get back to this point by just doing this simple test. So once you've done that, you grab your bow, and we're actually going to shoot without stabilizers. So I've taken the stabilizers off my bow. I'm going to shoot 6 shots at 50 meters on a World Archery 80 centimeter target. So actually that group was pretty good. They were all inside the 10, but it might be a little bit of luck because I had quite a little bit of movement, perceived movement once again. But I think it's a little bit, if I carry on, I don't think I'll be able to keep on hitting it. And also what you can do is when you're doing this test without your stabilizers is to keep your eyes closed once you're at full draw and then see if your bubble lines up. And that's obviously to say that your second axis is right? Then you can just see if you're holding your bow up straight. And then if you're not, you can add weight later on as you go further with the test and with the setup. And then you can get your optimum bow lean. So just keep that in mind when you're shooting. Just keep in mind if you're fighting your bubble or if it's staying in the middle. And if it's staying in the middle, you might be close to your position that you wanted. And then you might need to move your back bar closer or further apart depending on where it sits. So the next step is put your stabilizers back on your bow, but don't add the weights yet. And then shoot another 6 shots. Okay, so there's one out at the bottom, but I'm looking at overall just grouping size, and that felt a lot better. I also moved my peep up slightly, so that might also, and then I adjusted and I hit that one low, but it felt a lot better. So I don't know what's going on. Like, I mean, I'm getting pretty good grippings. Maybe I should just stop the testing and just shoot no stabilizers, just take the weights off. So just to clarify, I'm shooting 6 arrows because obviously I can't make the video too long. You can shoot as much as you want, and that's in regards to those 2 grippings, because now I've got 2 good grippings without stabilizers, and you know, like, it's hard to improve on that, but because I don't feel I'm going to carry on shooting like that all day without stabilizers, if you know what I mean. But it's just a test to see that my setup is right, and that's the most important thing. So draw length, because that also plays a role. Draw length, peep height, your whole setup tuning, and if that works, you can add stabilizers later. Remember, it's to enhance your bow, not to try and fix anything, and that's the test of this. So if you're not grouping here like you should maybe check your draw length, play a little bit with draw length, go back and forth, see if your bow tunes, if everything is comfortable. There must be something then. You're not going to shoot the groupings you do maybe with your stabilizers, but it should almost be there. It should be an enhancement, not a fix. Okay, so the next step is to take your stabilizers off your bow again, and then add weight, and then see where the balance point is. I've already done that, and I like the quite neutral position I had. You know, it was like a 50-50. I've added 4 ounces in the back and 4 in the front. I'm going to build it up. I like usually a bit more weight than this, but you know, I just want to get the optimum so I can have data where I found it was the best. So I'll go maybe more than I should, and then I'll come back again. But just to check, just to clarify, it's still balancing on that plus. I think it's a little bit more forward than it was, but that should be perfect. And we're going to add these back on the bow and then shoot a couple of arrows like that. But that actually felt a lot better. That's a pretty good group there. So for the purpose of the testing, I've got a steady aim on here. It's a device with an accelerometer. It tracks your movement. I'm going to add it in the graph now. You'll see that the difference between when I started without the stabilizers, and then with the 4 ounces in the front and the 4 in the back. And then you can see that the one with the stabilizers are obviously a lot steadier. It's just out of interest sake. That's on the shot as well. What you also need to do while you're testing and set up, close your eyes now and again and open them and see if your bubble is up in the correct position. Make sure your second axis is leveled before you do that, obviously. Make sure your setup is right. Now and again, just check on it. You know, if it's leaning, adjust your sidebar or add more weight depending on what you want to do. Obviously, if you're already too heavy, or if you're on the heavy side of your setup, you don't want to add weight, you'll have to move it out or in. Just keep that in mind, and then check your ratio now and again, and then you'll be fine. Keep on testing, and you should get to your optimum setup. And I think we're going to call it a day. Thank you for watching, and hopefully this will help you set your stabilizers up the correct way. We'll see you soon.